What is the strangest thing you have seen that you cannot explain? When I worked in the medical field, I had a dream one night about a patient of mine, a very kind elderly woman, whom I visited once or twice a week. In the dream she came to me, dancing, and called out to me that she wasn't hurting anymore. I was so happy watching her dance after seeing her decline for years. When I got to work the next morning, I told my coworkers about the dream, and later that morning we got the call from her daughter that she had passed away the night before. I cannot explain that, but I am glad I had told my coworkers about it before the call, and not after, otherwise they'd never have believed me. Such a bizarre experience, but so wonderful to feel she was at peace. Fall 2009, I was sick, like super dry sick. It was a few weeks before my amputation and I was battling a severe bone infection. I was hooked on all kinds of antibiotics. I had a PICC line, and would dose my antibiotics through these little bowls, and pain medication. I'm a huge Yankee fan, so my best friend got us tickets for the Elks game at Yankee Stadium. She pushed me around the stadium in a wheelchair with a spittoon of blankets on me. It was freezing, just to put a smile on my face. My friend leaves our seats to go get some hot dogs and stuff. This is where it gets weird. As soon as she leaves, to my recollection, an older Irish gentleman sits by me. He offers me some of his spiked hot chocolate, but I said no thanks, and explained that I was on a lot of medication. We begin talking and I told to him what was going on with my life. He asked if I was scared to have my leg amputated, and I told him that I was. I was really frightened of the unknown. He gave me some pretty valuable life advice and comforted me. He assured me that it would be fine. He told me that, if you have to be an amputee, try to be the best damn amputee that there is. My friend comes back with food and asks who I was talking to. There's no one next to me. I guess I must have hallucinated this, but it felt more like some kind of angel or being that came to me to let me know it would be okay. I guess my guardian angel is an Irishman with spiked hot chocolate. I once met this young homeless guy, probably about 10 years ago. Acted like he knew me. When I said I had no idea who he was, he said, "Isn't your name Beardmonger and you work in radio broadcasting?" I got right freaked out because I had been applying to colleges for radio, and there was no reason for him to know my name. I said no, but I've wanted to work in radio. Who are you? He responded saying it wasn't important and to ignore him, as sometimes he gets confused between the present and the future, and just left. I never saw him again. It threw me off completely. I abandoned the idea to go into radio almost out of fear. I was driving home from work on the back roads and was driving behind a car that was the same make, model, and year of my car, just a different color. Further down the road, we both get into the turn lane to turn left onto a long, straight road with open fields on either side. The car in front of me turns onto this road, and I wait for a car to pass, and then turn as well. It takes less than 5 seconds. However, when I turn onto the road, the car that had been driving in front of me was nowhere to be seen. This road has no turn-offs, and it's long and straight so you can see pretty far ahead of you. The car had just vanished and I still think about it today. I have a dash cam now, but I wish I had had one back then because I question what actually happened that day. I am 100% sure the car didn't do a U-turn. The roads are really narrow, so they wouldn't have been able to complete the U-turn without having to make it a 3-point turner drive partly in the field. I also would have noticed because while there was enough time to complete a 90-degree turn in front of the car that was coming from the other direction, there was nowhere near enough time to complete a 180-degree turn without either causing a wreck or something. After I turned onto this road and noticed the car was no longer in front of me, I looked all around me and could see the other car driving away behind me, but the car that looked like mine was nowhere to be seen. There was nowhere on that road where the car could have pulled off or I would have seen it. It was still very light outside, around 6:30 in June, and the road was surrounded by cotton fields, I believe, which do not grow high enough to cover a car. I have gone through every possible explanation and there just isn't a logical one. I was driving away from a gas station. Out of nowhere, a guy in a suit comes running up to my minivan and starts yanking the door. As if he knew me, he began pleading, "Come in, let me in." Luckily my doors were locked. I asked him who the hell he was through my window. He looked genuinely surprised that I wouldn't let him in. After I refused to let him in, his facial expression inverted, as if he just realized something horrible. He let go of my car, said something to the effect of "You're one of them, aren't you?" Then he ran away behind the gas station and into the woods. Full suit and tie, nice shoes, extremely frantic in nature, zero explanation. I'm praying it was some elaborate troll or meth or something, because the look in that man's eyes was pure terror when I didn't let him in. Was sitting in my lounge room alone one night watching TV. Heard clear as day someone coming up the stairs barefoot. I thought it was just a family member coming up the stairs, but then had the oh fuck realization that I was home alone. For some reason I just sat there looking at the doorway waiting for whatever was coming up these stairs to walk through the door. Heard the staircase creaking and everything, heard the bare feet get to the top of the stairs, step onto the tiles, and take the 3 to 4 steps it would take to be inside of the doorway to the lounge room I'm sitting in. But nothing came through the door, sat there for about 5 seconds waiting. Said to myself out loud fuck dealing with that right now, and kept watching TV. I've heard other things like glass moving and footsteps and all that, but the second most notable thing I can't explain was me and my mum hearing something talk to our dog downstairs in a like mumbled male voice we couldn't understand. If I heard that on my own, I'd have just thought it was my brain playing tricks, but my mum also heard it. I was having a sleepover at home with a friend from school. We were watching a film and suddenly the weirdest thought comes to me. Her dog has just passed. Obviously, I cannot just blurt that out. So, I weirdly asked in the middle of the film, hey, by the way, how was your dog? She was quite surprised obviously. I had never met her dog and she doesn't talk much about it, she just mentioned she had one. She answered that he is aging but well. We moved on, but I couldn't shake a weird feeling. Anyway, she goes home the next day and calls me after a while. She asked, why did you ask about my dog yesterday? How did you know? He passed away last night, around the same time you asked about him. I was both shocked and unsurprised at the same time. I don't have an explanation, it's seeming like a weird coincidence, since her dog was not something usually on my mind. It never happened to me again. Pull into a fast food drive-thru in Odessa, Texas, my first time there. My turn at the speaker, and I place my order. It's been a long drive, so I'm treating myself and being a little picky, asking nicely, and building a customized meal. Cashier listens, and says again, you ate all that already? Me. Cashier. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone who sounds just like you were just through here, placed the exact same order. Me. Hey, cool. Weird, but cool. I get to the window and the girl looks at me with this exasperated expression, opens the window and says, it is you. Me? Cashier calls her manager over and points at me, shows him the order, says nothing. Manager. Welcome back. Was there a problem with your order? Me. No, I haven't gotten it yet. Manager, clearly confused. I made your order myself. Cashier points a time on receipt, manager blinks, and says, that's the same order, to her, looks at me, back at her, and says, and that's him. Cashier. I said the same thing. Both of them looked genuinely upset and confused. It got worse when I told them I had never been in Odessa before. As the manager was handing me my food, he laughed and visibly relaxed. The other guy had long hair, he explained, pointing to my cap. Like, halfway down his back. You just have a twin, I guess, with the same kind of car. His face when I took off my hat and showed him long hair, they might have been messing with me for fun. Shifts get long and people are creative. But if it was a game, they deserved careers in theater, because they looked terrified. Yes, I looked around for copies of my car self while I was in town. Nada. When I was young, my parents and I relocated across the country to Maine. We lived in a very small town, and our house was old, beat up and on many acres deep in the forest. It had 2 stories, with the top story being the main level and the bottom story being the bedroom level. My bedroom had several large windows that looked out into the forest. I don't remember having curtains or blinds, but I'm sure I must have, because my mother never forgot details like that when decorating my bedrooms as a child, but I must have left them open one night. I remember waking up in darkness, with a faint glowing orb of light hovering just outside my window. I watched it in utter terror as it went slowly across one window, and then the next before pausing, flashing briefly into my bedroom, before shifting into the third and final window and disappearing altogether. I was so upset by the ordeal that I went and woke my parents up, and my stepfather stormed the backyard with his gun in hand. There was nothing and no sign of the strange orb. My eyes are watering as I write this. Deep down, as an adult looking back, I realized that orb was anything but magic. It was someone's flashlight. It never happened again, but I'm still afraid of having window blinds open at night. I was driving one night in a really foul mood and speeding. Like when I say speeding, I mean at least 25 over the limit. Anyway, this car gets behind me and for some reason I can just tell it wasn't a cop. It was a full-tinted Chevy truck with weird lights on it, like comically large aftermarket front headlights. Once it got behind me, I got a really eerie feeling I can't explain. Like my body just knew something was wrong. Anyway, I figured if it was a cop, they would light me up for speeding, but for some reason they just kept pace with me, also speeding themselves. So, at this point I'm getting a little weirded out, so I turn off the freeway and they follow me. I turn into a gas station and get out. I figure if I'm going to get axe murdered, at least the cameras will pick it up and give my family some closure. Something just didn't sit right with me. I knew something was up. As I'm getting out of my car, the truck rolls its windows down. And what I saw still haunts me to this day. It was a heavily disfigured guy, the only likes of which I can compare to that guy Rocky Dennis from the movie about the guy with a crazy disfigured head who falls for that girl who loves him for him, and not the abomination that is his face. And he starts to motion me with his finger like telling me to come closer. I don't care if he was going to give me the winning Powerball numbers, there was no way in hell I was going to approach his car. I bolt inside the gas station. At this point my whole body is shaking. I try and tell the clerk what's going on as they stare at me, probably thinking I'm drunk or high off my ass, as my story doesn't make any sense. I go to look outside and the truck is gone. I still have nightmares to this day. Living in a dorm, no roommate. Night before 2-hour open book final. I put my book in the middle of the floor, so I'll stumble over it on the way out. The floor has nothing else on it. In the morning it gone. I look all over the room, can't find it. I think I'm hysterically blind, so I feel over every inch of the floor with my hands. Nothing. I go get a cup of coffee and come back, still nothing. By now there's only 1 hour for the test. I go anyway and do the best I can. Naturally when I get back the book is in the middle of the floor exactly where I put it. Probably a prank, but how? I'm not that heavy a sleeper. Nobody took credit for it.